Hello and welcome to another session of Groundbreakers Live. I'm your host, Javed Mohammed, and I'm very honored to have with us Maria Colgan, who is a distinguished product manager. Maria, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a real pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So you're going to be presenting at Oracle Developer Live, the session all about Oracle database. Can you give us a sense of what the event? I mean, obviously it's about database, but like is there a theme? Is it what's happening in it?
So you're right. This particular developer event is focused all around the database and how easy it is to use the Oracle database to develop and deploy kind of modern enterprise applications. So everything from using machine learning to do recommendations, graph analytics for fraud detection, spatial, JSON, basically all of the kind of
Wow.
modern technologies, and how we can do that with the Oracle database and how we can make it much simpler than perhaps some of the other alternative approaches to these new apps.
Okay, so that's probably, you mentioned technologies, and probably that's a good segue to get into your presentation. So what technologies, so your presentation is Achieving Hyperscale with our Oracle Autonomous Database. So what technologies allows you to go hyperscale? It almost sounds like something out of Star Wars.
I promise you.
Star Trek.
I do promise you it is of this world. But actually, some of it is, as you said, taking advantage of the existing database technologies that all of our customers can use today to help deliver this hyperscale. So what I'm talking about there is the Oracle Autonomous Database, of course, is built on our Exadata infrastructure. And that infrastructure is not only pre-configured for an Oracle database, but also pre-optimized. And that's one part of where we're getting this hyperscale from. The other part comes, of course, from running a real application cluster or a rack database on top of that Exadata infrastructure. Because that's going to help us do kind of three things. It's going to allow us to kind of instantly scale out that solution. So if additional resources are needed, we can simply just add another server to that rack node. It gives us a nice HA configuration. So if one of the servers should go down, the others remain open for business. Your application can continue to run. And then the final thing it does for us, of course, is allows us to patch that autonomous database while it's online and while it's open for business. And that's really, that gives our customers that ability to always be available and always be able to scale. So yeah, we are using a lot of our existing technology with a little bit of machine learning magic in there to help with that as well.
Yeah. So I was actually watching one of your earlier presentations where you talk about scaling, and you actually give a demo where you start off with something and then you add more CPUs, maybe more storage, I can't remember. So as a best practice, like what do you recommend to folks actually out there? Do they start off with something small, and then how do you figure out what is the optimal way to go?
I think you've hit the nail on the head there. You do want to start small, right? Especially in the cloud and when you're developing, because you don't really know yet what your workload's going to need. And then there's a bunch of very useful tools, both built into the Oracle console and third-party tools that you can connect to your autonomous database, see how it's behaving as you ramp up that workload, and see whether or not you need to add additional resources. And as you said, it could be additional storage or it could be CPU. You certainly don't have to do them hand in hand like you do in other clouds, where you've got a fixed kind of t-shirt size server that you need to pick from. You don't need to do any of that with Autonomous Database. You can simply go one CPU at a time or go from 0 to 128 if you wish. It's all at your own design. And in fact, that's a lot of what we'll cover in the session on Thursday. I'll be showing you exactly how to do that, both manually through the UI and through the APIs, or you can turn on something called auto scale. So if you're not sure how much resources you're going to need, you just tell us, okay, this is my baseline. I know I'm going to need, let's say, 4 CPUs, but I'm going to let Oracle automatically scale me up from there all the way to maybe 12 CPUs if my workload demands it. And you only pay for those additional resources when you actually need them. So really giving people a lot of choices about how and when to scale these environments.
Well, I'm impressed the fact that you can do that automatically. Also, I'm just trying to think of an analogy to the real world, and I was thinking of cruise control, but it's so much more sophisticated. I mean, it's like just knowing. So you mentioned earlier on. So is that really the whole thing of AI and machine learning? Are those really kind of the magic tools in the background that enable all of this?
I mean, it's certainly part of it. A lot of automation and a lot of AI has gone in to manage these systems. Because one of the common questions we get with the autonomous database is, well, am I just trading my on-prem DBAs for Oracle DBAs? You know, who's doing all of this? And as much as I'd love to say it is an army of DBAs doing it, there's just no way they'd be able to cope with the volume of databases we have running as part of the autonomous database service. So it is an awful lot of automation with a little bit of machine learning or AI magic thrown in there that helps keep all of these systems up and running at their best and scaling when they need to. And so it's amazing to see it in action. But seeing is believing. And remember, you can see it yourself as part of the always free tier on the Oracle Cloud. You do get 2 autonomous databases as part of that always free tier. So it's a great opportunity to be able to use the free tier, try out some of this stuff and see it for yourself rather than believing just you and me. These folks
Absolutely.
can see it for themselves.
And
Yeah.
to use the car analogy, it's like going for a test drive.
Exactly. You can take it for a test drive. You can take your Tesla database for a test drive when it's going to drive itself. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that really sounds awesome. I really wish you well in the presentation. I do have one. We were talking a little bit off camera, even though we're doing this interview via Zoom. The last time I saw you in person was actually in Bucharest, Romania, when we were doing the EMEA tour for the folks out there. You know, we were visiting the different user groups in different countries. And that's the last time I saw you. So I just wanted to ask you, I know you travel, obviously, prior to the current events, you travel a lot. Was there any like favorite part of either that tour or one of the other ones that resonates for you?
I mean, I really loved the Romania stop on that tour, just the sheer enthusiasm from the audience members to participate in all of the events, ask some great questions. They were a really, really good bunch there. But to be honest, it's so hard to pick a one favorite place because
I'll
everywhere
let
we
you pick
go,
3, 5, 10.
10. I'm sure I'm going to end up, insulting somebody. But even just this week alone, there's so many virtual events that I've been involved in. So on yesterday, I was in Australia talking
Wow.
to an audience there yesterday evening. This morning, it was New York. Hopefully on Thursday, we'll end up talking to a whole bunch of folks as part of the Developer Live conference. And I'm also talking to folks in Chicago this week. So it's part of me is really excited about the current environment that we're in because we are doing everything virtual. It means I can actually do a lot more events than what we'd be able to do when we were traveling in person. So pros and cons to all of these things. I miss the live audience, but it is great to be able to touch so many audiences in such a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Maria, thank you so much for sharing and for giving us your time. All the best.
Thanks so much for having me. Bye.